start and welcome you to Model Monday after a brief 2-week hiatus because I was traveling for work. We are now back to make stuff, and by request, we're going to make something using constraints and parameters. So we're going to force ourselves to use parameters in order to make a pegboard holder. A while ago, we made a pegboard holder that holds the chalk line. I just go out there to the pegboard and I go, hey, this is just laying on the shelf. Obviously, it needs to go up here. So we made a chalk. Were you here for that?
I think that was the first time I came here.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
And today, when I went out there, I found the refill for said chalk line device, just sitting on the shelf. So we're going to make a little pegboard holder for this. But we're going to do it using parameters and constraints. What the F are you talking about? I'm sure you're saying right now. So normally, when we make a drawing or we make a sketch, I would start by creating a sketch, and then I would say, hey, I'm going to make a rectangle, and my rectangle is going to be 1 inch by 1 inch, right? I would specify my drawing based on some measurements that I give it. Hello. Are you joining us for Model Monday?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Pull up a chair.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Do I need to be on the PC?
Well, if you're gonna follow along and draw with us, you'll need a computer of some sort.
Okay.
But.
Should I just use one of the desktop? I have a laptop.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, normally we would get started and we would just draw shapes by typing in dimensions, right? But the other way that you can do this is by giving it parameters before we start drawing anything. This area of Fusion changes pretty frequently. This whole window just changed to the latest update. So.
Are you on Autodesk?
Yeah. So model Fusion 360. And then you have an account, I assume, right?
Yeah, I just did one yesterday.
Cool.
It runs slow on my Dell. I don't know why.
Okay, sure.
It's got integrated graphics cards, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
I really don't have anything with it.
Yeah, and then you can sign in with whatever your username
I
or
usually use my
password
iPad Pro
was.
for everything. I couldn't get it down there though. I don't know why.
Yeah, they don't make an iPad version.
I thought they would, but because it downloaded it, but you have to. It's because you can't open the folders.
I think it's just a viewer.
Yeah.
The Fusion 360 for the iPad.
I downloaded a different one. I forgot what it was. But.
Take a little pause here, let everybody get to speed.
Active sessions exceeded. It says active sessions exceeded on this PC. There are more active sessions running a lot of this user account.
Oh, looks like you're still logged in somewhere else.
Oh,
So you
probably
can just
on
go
there.
ahead and say continue, and it'll log you out of your other account. Or on
Yeah,
your
that's
account.
probably not to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had system requirements for here. I just don't know. I don't know if it's a graphics card or what. It's like I'm not buy a desktop again.
I mean, I just use it on my laptop.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Alright,
All right, so I was saying that normally when we make a drawing, we make a two-dimensional drawing or any kind of shape for that matter, we do it by just giving it dimensions as we're making the drawing. However, the other way that we can do this is if we click on modify.
Are you on bird's eye view right now? Or top view?
Right now I'm looking at the front, so I've just created a sketch. And
Okay.
you don't need to do this right now. I was just kind of just trying to illustrate the differences between the two drawing techniques. I'll show you here. Is you can click on change parameters, and we can enter a user parameter and give it a name. So we could call this width and give it a width of 1. And then I can enter in another one, its height. And I can give it a height of 1. And now, as I'm making a drawing with those user parameters, instead of calling out dimensions when I make my drawings, instead of typing in 1, I can just start typing in width. And it'll say, oh, user parameter for width?
So it's similar to CAD.
Exactly. Actually, this is width, and this is height.
How does this differ from like SolidWorks or CAD?
Well, this is a CAD program. So it's CAD's just computer-aided design, right? So I don't know how it differs from SolidWorks. I've not used SolidWorks. You got to have a fancy $900 license to use SolidWorks. Fusion is free for us hobbyists. So here is another way that we can make the same box, right? Only now the difference is I can come here back to my parameters window, and I can change this parameter. And as I change that parameter, my box just changes size. So it's kind of a constraint that you add beforehand, right? So we're going to make an entire drawing using that principle here. So,
I got a quick question.
yeah.
For the taskbar above, like how do you, so right now I just have the basic like shapes, and how do you expand the taskbar? Like where
Like the menu up here? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, I'll show you that as we start drawing. All right, so now we can get started. Now that I've kind of given you like a brief overview of parameters here, but we'll get a lot more practiced as we move here. So, because I think we got some new folks, all along the top is our tools that we'll be using in order to make our drawing here. In general, we'll move from right to left. We'll start in the create menu and we'll work our way over. Down.
Left to right.
I'm sorry, left to right. Left to right, just like you read. Thank you. It's been a long Monday. At the bottom here are some kind of like navigational tools. I don't use these a whole lot, to be honest. My trackpad, with 2 fingers on it, I can zoom in and zoom out. The cube, the navigation cube up at the top right-hand corner here, is how I kind of twist and turn my 3-dimensional environment around. So anything that highlights blue on that navigation cube, I can hover over and I can click on it. Now there's not a whole lot going on in my view here. I'll pull up something that's got a model on it, so I can click on the word front, and you can see I'm looking at the front side of that model now. I can click on the left side there. I could even click on a corner or an edge and go kind of directly to looking at that corner or edge. I can also click and drag on that navigational cube. So as I click and drag, I can kind of move around in a little bit more fine detail. Yeah, I think that this is 75% of beginners kind of getting over things is figuring out how to zoom into one area, twist the viewport around so they can see the side that they want to, and do whatever they got to do, and zoom out, and then twist the navigation again and zoom into another area and look at that in a little bit more detail, or do whatever work you got to do there. As we start to draw, 2 things will happen. So the first thing that will happen is right now this tab here has got nothing in it. Our browser over here is looking kind of empty. as we start making two-dimensional sketches, we'll have a folder that pops up here that says sketches, and in that folder will be all of our two-dimensional sketches. So for example, here's my sketches folder in this file. As we make those two-dimensional sketches into three-dimensional objects, we'll have a little bodies folder that pops up here. Construction folders are where you end up with like construction planes. In order to make a sketch, you have to have kind of like an imaginary piece of paper in order to draw that sketch on, right? Construction plane is what we call that imaginary piece of paper. We might make one or two of those as we move along here. But this area will become populated with stuff, like in this sketches folder, our sketches. The other thing that will happen as we start to draw things is our timeline down here will start to populate with little icons. Little features is their official term. These are little features here. And because Fusion 360 is parametric design software, this is kind of like a timeline of events from my very first sketch to where I'm at now. That shows me how I created this drawing. So now at any point I can go back in time and I can change something about this sketch. Like I could get rid of the word holder and say okay, and then when I come into the present, everything extruded out except now it doesn't have that word holder in it. So you can go back in time, make changes, and then come back into the present. So those are the two things that will change as we start drawing. All right, enough theory. Let's actually draw a thing. So I'm going to start by clicking on my Create menu, and I'm going to choose to create a sketch. So click on Create, and then Create Sketch. Now we have, like I said before, to specify kind of a two-dimensional surface for us to draw our sketch on. We've got kind of a three-dimensional room that is our drawing environment here. And you can imagine these three surfaces that it gives us initially as kind of like the couple of walls and the floor of the room. It's easier to draw on the walls in the makerspace than it is to draw on thin air. P.S. Please don't draw on the walls of the makerspace. Okay, so I'm just going to pick on one of these. One of the things I like about Fusion is if you just stop moving your mouse, sometimes it'll just tell you what to do. So it says, oh, I'm supposed to select a plane or a plein air face. So I'll click on that. And now we're now in our drawing environment here, our sketching environment. So all of our tools at the top have changed to two-dimensional drawing tools here. And then you can see we've also got a sketch palette open here. So this is the cues that were in our two-dimensional drawing area, or sketching area. All right, so I mentioned we were going to start by making a bunch of parameters. Let's go ahead and do that now. So in the Modify menu, if we click on Modify and then come down to Change Parameters, it's kind of funny, the window, this is what the change parameter window used to look like in the last version. And as we click on it, you will see that it does not look anything like that. So things change often.
How do I turn my grid on? Somebody turn it off so I can see.
Yeah, you're good. You just gotta, yeah, if you look at the top, there you go. Now you're looking at that sketch, at that grid, yeah. Your user settings will travel with you.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, cool. So now if we click on Modify and then Change Parameters, now we can start entering in some user parameters here. So there's a user parameter button that's kind of like upper right-hand corner of this window, this parameters window here. And if I click on that, we can start by giving our parameter a name. So let's start with something simple, like this bottle size, which is the thing that we're going to hold here. this bottle is 2 inches. So let's give the name of our first parameter. I'm going to call it my bottle diameter. Bottle DIA is what I'm going to call it. You can't put spaces in your user parameter names. You can put underscores. So if you want to put an underscore in there, if it makes it easier to read, I support your choices. We're going to be drawing in inches for the most part, so I'm going to leave the units here set to inches. And then my expression here is just going to be a 2, because it's 2 inches. And then I'm going to say OK. All right, so because we're making pegboard, I'm going to enter in a new user parameter here again. Our pegboard has a specific spacing. So I'm going to call this just peg spacing. Our peg spacing is actually going to be 1 inch. We'll need a user parameter for the size of the peg holes. So I'll make another user parameter for the peg hole size. Let's just call this, it's a 1/4 of an inch, but we're going to call it the peg. I'm just going to peg something. Peg thickness? Sure, peg thickness. Let's see. We're gonna have a number of pegs. So each of our pegboard holders will be a certain number of pegs, like how many up and how many down. So, and they might be different. So let's go with my horizontal peg count. And now I'm going to change the units here because I think I'm going to go with 2 to start off with. But we don't want it to be 2 inches. This is just like a count of the number of pegs that we're going to have. So I'm going to change it to no units. So it's just going to be the number 2 with no units. And now I can add a comment here too. So sometimes I'll do this if I'm like, all right, my hor peg count. If, you know, like tomorrow me won't know what that means maybe. It is the number of pegs horizontally. And then you can see that comment gets added over to the side here, so you can kind of leave yourself notes. And you can change them when you make spelling mistakes. And then we're also going to have a vertical vert peg count. And I'm also going to make that 2, and we'll change that to no units as well. I believe that'll be enough for us to get started here. You know, I often, think I have the amount of user parameters I'm going to need, and then when I start making my drawing, go, oh, and I'm also going to have a parameter for this and a parameter for that, and then you can just add them as you go. It's not the end of the world if you don't have all your user parameters right off the bat. We good?
Yep.
This is the fun part, typing in variables. So now I'm going to click OK here. And now now we can start putting those variables to work. So I think the first thing I'd like to do here is I'd like to make a peg. So let's make one peg. A peg is going to be a circle. So we'll click on the circle tool here, and I'm going to go ahead and choose center diameter circle. Actually, you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to, instead, I'm going to start by making a rectangle. I'm going to make the rectangle that the pegs are going to protrude from. So I'm going to click on the rectangle menu, and I'm going to choose this center diameter, or this center rectangle here. I am going to place the center of my rectangle right at the center of my world here. I think it's a good rule to have something connected to your origin in order to have a sketch that is really fully constrained. It needs to be constrained in dimension, but also in position. And having something connected to that origin is a way to have your sketch constrained in position right off the bat. So I think it's a good rule to follow. All right, so we don't have a user parameter for this box, but I think we can get away with what we have. You can do math and variables, I believe, in this dimension here that I've got. So we've got a dimension for our peg count, and really I want it to be like an inch bigger than whatever our peg count is. So if I type in my horizontal peg count. Oh, ha ha ha. So in order to change it in your document settings over here, if you spin down the little triangle,
okay, change
and then it says units, inches, and you can click on change active units when you hover over that.
Yep,
and then you can hit the little checkbox.
Yep, got it.
And that'll make that come up as your default from there on out. All right, so create rectangle, center rectangle. Now, I believe, so this is our peg count, our vertical peg count, which is 2. If I multiply that by 1 inch, ha ha ha, look at that, it's going to let me do it. So I'm going to multiply that peg count times 1 inch. And then I'm going to add some parentheses on either side of that. So I'm going to put an open parentheses, and then my vertical peg count times 1, and then a closed parentheses. And now I'm going to add 1 more inch.
So I should drag over to 2.
So now you can just let go of your mouse and you can start typing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you can type it. So that's your horizontal. So whatever you called that variable.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you called that variable?
No, I had to drop down again. Let's see. So I'd have to look at.
Yeah, you'll have to look at modify, and then change parameters.
Yeah, see, it's hard to remember all this. Okay, that's it.
All right, so now I can hit the tab key, and I can do the same thing for for that other measurement. So this other measurement was my horizontal peg count, my hor peg count. And if you don't know what you named it, if you kind of have an inkling of an idea, I was like, oh, I know I called it peg something. You can just type in a P, right? And it'll go, oh, which one of these peg things are we looking for? Am I looking for my peg spacing? Nope. Am I looking for my peg thickness? Nope. My, horizontal peg count. That's what I want. So,
Oh, I see. If you start typing it, it'll find it.
correct. Yeah, it'll just pick from the user parameters that you have available to you that you made.
But if you move the mouse right after you do that, then you gotta
Yeah, you gotta let go of your mouse and embrace the power of the keyboard. You can use the tab key to bounce back and forth between the two measurements. So it's going to be my horizontal peg count times 1 inch. Again, that is in parentheses. And now we're going to add 1 inch to that. So I wish I could expand these text boxes that it gives you. You know, like the text boxes should expand automatically to fill in whatever you got there, but that's not an option. All right, cool. Getting there?
Yeah, little by little.
Little by little, all right.
I should know how to do this.
That's all right, that's all right. That's what class is for. All right, now I'm going to hit enter. So this is kind of cool. I didn't know you could do that, so I'm kind of excited about this. All right, so now we can make our pegs, right? I'm gonna go ahead and click on my create menu, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab the circle tool, and I'm gonna find the center diameter circle. Now, I don't know exactly where this center diameter circle is going to go right now. Or I know where it should live, but I'm not sure exactly where that position is on here. So I'm going to purposefully make this in the wrong spot. So later I can move it into the right spot. The reason I do that is I know that I'm going to want this peg. I know it's going to be on this line, but I don't know that it's going to be on that line for every conceivable amount of peg width that we might have, right? So like if in the future we go, hey, this needs to be a 3-peg thing, then it's not going to be on that line, and I don't want to be constrained to that line in the future if I know that it might change. Does that make sense? So I'm going to purposefully make it not on that line, and that way it's not locked in place on that line in the future here. So I'm going to click to place the center point of my circle, and then I'm going to move my mouse out, and now I can specify that parameter, which is peg something, peg thickness. And I'm going to hit enter. Twice. You have to hit enter twice. All right, cool. So now I can position that in place here. So I'm going to do that by adding dimension constraints. So I know how far I want it to be from the edges. So our thing is a 1/2 inch difference on each side, right? So I can add this sketch dimension constraint here, and what I'll do is I'll click on the center point of my circle, and then I'll click on the line that I want to dimension it from, and now as I move my mouse around, I've got this dimension that I can place. And this dimension is going to be half of our pegboard spacing. I believe that is how this will work out. I've been wrong about things before, though, so if I place that dimension, my pegboard spacing, or my peg spacing, I can just divide that by, not question mark 2, I can divide that by 2. And it will lock that into place. And the width, is that right? If our spacing is 1 inch, Actually, I don't think that's right. I think that this is just pegboard spacing. It's just... Nope, I was right the first time. There we go. Second guessing myself. All right. So I'm going to do that one more time to space it from the bottom here. So from my create menu, I'm going to go ahead and grab that sketch dimension option. It's the D key on the keyboard for people who like keyboard shortcuts. And this is a really handy one because I add dimensions to things pretty regularly. So if I just hit the D key, I can specify the center of my circle and that bottom line. And then I've got a dimension that I can place in here. And this is my pegboard spacing divided by 2. And then I'll come and see how you guys did.
All my stuff. I went back again. I had to start over.
Oh, you're good. You just...
No, it went.
Okay, right now. All right.
My first one kind of went okay, but I'm not sure how exactly I picked it. I get select sketch. Oh, okay. Select sketch geometry. Okay.
There you go.
So I went to
Okay.
And then your second, there you go.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go. Cool.
Okay.
I did this, and then I went to horizontal. Use my parameter to.
Yeah, and again, I would let go of the mouse. Because when you move the mouse around, it's just
It's a
going to
bad,
move
it's
your...
a bad habit.
Yeah.
So I went here. I did horizontal.
And then you can hit enter instead of touching your mouse.
And then tab.
There you go. One more time, hit enter. There you
I don't
go.
know what I did.
Cool.
3626, not that 2.
Oh, maybe you don't have the right... Try looking for your user parameter there again. Type in your user parameter. And hit enter. And then one more time. Something... Horizontal peg. Horizontal peg count. Oh, so you want, you want your, for that measurement, it's you horizontal peg count times 1 inch.
Okay. So I just type.
You type in your horizontal peg, then you hit enter, and now you can multiply. That's your multiplication thing. So
Times
1 inch.
1.
And then you could just do IN. There you go. Now you can enter it one more time. There we go. And then you can double click on that measurement there. There you go. Cool. There we go. All right, cool. So now let's make the remainder of our pegs. Actually, maybe let's not do that. We'll make the remainder of our pegs later. I kind of just want to verify that I've got the right spacing here before we move on. Because the extent to this, or actually the spacing of it, is going to be our peg, horizontal peg count. Oh.
Peg spacing.
This is my peg, sorry, yep, good call. This is my peg spacing, and this is my peg count.
Or is,
Yeah. And then it's going to be, I guess I'm going to have 3 peg. But that's okay. It's going to be fine, because it's going to work out just good. For some reason, I've got 3 inches there. Yeah, it's going to be fine. That'll work out just well. All right, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Finish Sketch. Once we've got our little peg in there, I'm going to name my sketch. So we name our sketches just by clicking one time and then pausing and then clicking a second time. And I'm going to name it, I don't know, pegs. Do you need that drawing again just for the measurements? Just so you can get your peg in there? Yeah.
I think I specify, I put a circle on it, specified.
Yeah, so now you can give it some dimension. So from the create menu, you can go and grab the sketch dimension option as the very bottom one. And then you'll specify the middle of that circle. And then the right line there. Yes, you can click there on the circle. And then if you click on this line here, there you go. And then if you move your mouse in between them, I think you missed clicking on something. Try clicking there one more time. Oh, there you go. Now you can.
So it's half inch.
Yeah. Cool. And then you can do that same thing. Actually, you're right on that line, so you should be good to go. Yeah, but you can dimension from the bottom too if you want to. There you go. And then there you go. Now you got that. Now you can click one more time to place that dimension wherever you want to place it. Oh, it went away. I think you click on your circle one more time. And then move your mouse in between them. There you go. There you go. You don't have to click on the line. You can just place it anywhere in the middle. But I think you're clicking on the line and you're like deselecting one of the things. And then put, oh, sure. And then, yeah, there you go. Cool. All right, cool. So now you can click Finish Sketch. And we're partially on the way. All right, so let's go ahead and extrude out our first items here. So from the Create menu, oops, I hit a button.
Oh, I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Our sketch has a little lock symbol next to it. Is that because we're using parameters?
You know, that's a fine question, and I don't know the answer.
Okay.
So I wonder if that sketch is fully constrained, so it's giving us the lock. But sometimes I get a lock symbol, and sometimes I do not. So this sketch that I just made is not fully constrained.
Okay.
But we can test it because that's a good question. So if I choose to fully constrain it by giving it dimension and then locking it in position, yep, look at that. It just changed right to the lock symbol.
Huh, okay.
So that is a symbol of a fully constrained sketch. It's the lock symbol of positivity. Yeah, good question. All right. So now we can extrude out. So from our Create menu here, I'm going to go ahead and choose the Extrude option. And the items that I'm going to extrude, I got my little extrude window that pops up here. And I'm going to extrude out those two shapes. So I've got two shapes to extrude because I've got a circle inside of my little square. And in order to make sure I have that encompassed there, all right. And I'm going to extrude this a distance. I'm going to make it 1/4 of an inch. Now, I suppose we could have made a user parameter for this. You still can if you want to. You can go and make a user parameter for this. I think that the real thing that user parameters shine in are in things that you know you are going to want to change frequently. So the thickness of my pegboard part is probably not going to change depending on what I'm putting on that pegboard part, so I'm just going to give it a 1/4 inch dimension. The number of pegs probably going to change a lot more frequently, and it's really easy to change those user parameters. That's my rationale here. I'm extruding away from my sketch, and that should be noted because it'll be easier for us to extrude out our little peg when it comes time to extrude out our little peg there. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and say okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and extrude out our peg there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Create. I'm going to go ahead and choose the Extrude option. I'll choose the little peg here, and now I'm going to extrude towards me. This is another one of those things that's not going to change, and I happen to know that...
For some reason I can't select my peg.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we don't have it extruded out to begin with. So, here, make your thing full screen, and then you can see you've got some icons down there. Now, if you right-click on that little icon and say Edit Feature, now you can add it to the things that you're extruding. There you go. So you just click on it, and now it's added to your extrusions.
Okay.
So now you can say OK. And now, if you spin down your little sketches folder, the visibility on the sketches turned off.
Okay, yeah.
That's like, they call that a feature, but I think it's annoying.
This is like counterintuitive for me because I do this like on a daily basis.
Sure.
So it's like backwards compared to me just pulling stuff and moving them.
Sure.
And extruding them and turning them and slicing them. Like,
Are you a SolidWorks user or?
Yeah, I do some of it at work, like not a lot, but I look at prints all day and do
Sure.
stuff, and I do red lines on prints, so it's like I'm used to that and on my iPad, like messing around and just being able to grab stuff and move.
Right,
versus,
right, and pull and push it wherever, yeah. Versus like telling it what you want to do first,
Yeah.
and then telling it what you want to do it to.
But this is more helpful for doing repetitive piecework, though.
I'm going to choose to give this a taper. So in the past when I've done little pegboard things, when I extrude out these the little actual peg bits there, I give them just like a -3 degree taper, just so they can pop in there. And then the last thing that I do here, I'm going to make this a join, because I'm going to joining it to this other body here. I could be making this a new body, and what that would do is it would give me a second body in my bodies folder. But join is indeed what we want to do here. And I'm going to say OK. Now, the thing that actually makes it hold on, makes that peg hold on, is a little sphere I put at the end of it. So if I click on Create, and then I choose Sphere, and I hover over, I have to pick a surface to draw a sphere on, which always kind of weirds me out. I need a surface to draw the sphere on. I'm going to draw the sphere over this little top of my peg here. And if I hover over it, it's really hard to see on the screen. But if I get near the middle, it gives me a little blue circle. That is actually a constraint that it is showing me. That is a concentric constraint. So this is showing me that my mouse is on the center of this circle. So it's automatically giving me that kind of thing as a constraint. And now I can type in actually, I can type in a parameter here. This is my peg thickness. So it's against that 0.25 inches.
So you clicked on the end of the peg and then.
Correct. And then I click kind of heavy. So you click, the first time to click, you click on the end of the peg, you specify or so if you click on create,
Yep.
and then sphere, sphere, there you go. And now, there you go, there's that little blue circle. And now you can make it your peg thickness. And it is red right now because it thinks we want to default to cutting. We want to, our operation here, it thinks we want to do a cut. We actually want to do a join. So if we click on that operation, drop down menu, and go down to join, it will join those two bodies together into one harmonious peg. All right, so believe it or not, we're getting pretty close here. We only have one peg. We have a circle. We have a sphere.
Yeah, I have a sphere.
So we've only got one peg, and a single pegboard mount will not hold very well. It will be rotationally unstable, let's call it. So we can add the rest of our pegs by choosing to make a rectangular pattern. This pattern tool is super popular, or super powerful, excuse me. I make a lot of patterns. So from the create menu, if we scroll down to pattern, and then over to rectangular pattern, we are going to make a pattern of features. So features are things that happen down here in the timeline. The object type that we're going to choose is an object type of features. And now the features that we're going to make a pattern of are two things. It's going to be that extrusion. Did I not choose that extrusion? Oh, let me choose that extrusion. I'm making a pattern of features. Choose the features. All right, let's try this again. Rectangular pattern. Features. So weird. For some reason, it would not let me choose these features over here when I had my sketch turned on. I don't know if you guys had that problem. So here, if I turn this sketch on, oh, nope, it lets me choose them now. It wouldn't let me click them before. So I'm making a pattern of this extrusion and this sphere feature, right? And the axes that I'm going to make those in is going to be my red axis and my blue axis. I could also choose as the axes, the directions. I could choose the sides of my cube, my rectangle, but I'm going to stick to choosing the red and my green axis here. And now I've got four parameters that I already know. So the quantity in axis 1 is going to be our horizontal peg count, perhaps? Horizontal peg count. And the distance is going to be our, the extent type here, the distribution of our pegs. We actually have a spacing, not an extent. An extent is like, hey, I want to take this amount of space and I want to divide it up 50 times. A spacing is, hey, I've got 50 pegs and I want to tell you the spacing between each peg. So we actually have that kind of distribution where we know the spacing, and the distance is our peg spacing. All right, so now that I did that, I can actually tell now that it's not that this first axis for me is the up and down axis. So instead of the horizontal peg count, what I really want to do is my vertical peg count. And then the quantity here from axis 2 is going to be my horizontal peg count and peg spacing. Now, I wonder how I messed this up. But I think we can fix it, because I was hoping these things were all going to end up centered, but it looks like I'm a 1/2 inch off here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to my sketch, and I'm just going to make an alteration. So if I
this is before we OK on our
pattern. You can
pattern?
click OK on your pattern. Yeah.
We do click OK?
You can, yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
okay.
So here's my rectangular pattern. Like the spacing here is good, and the number is good. It's just where this first one is located, I miscalculated on. So if I click OK here, when I go back into the past, where my error was in this sketch, this very first sketch, I'm going to right click on it and say Edit Sketch. And my error is these measurements here. So remember when I was flip-flopping and going, oh, is that a peg spacing? Is that a peg spacing divided by 2? I think it is indeed supposed to be peg spacing. And if I say Finish Sketch here, oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. That's super interesting. So it didn't move the balls, even though I thought we were constraining the center point to those balls to be the center point with those pegs there. Really interesting. Those extrusions happened. I guess I can go back and edit that feature, and that point is going to be here. That all kind of fell apart, didn't it? Diameter is our peg thickness. It really doesn't want to put it over there. I'm going to go back in time. So I'm just going to drag my mouse back. And I'm going to kind of cheat here. So this ball is in the wrong spot. So I'm going to go back in time. I'm going to delete that feature from my timeline. So I'm going to delete this feature. So I came back to before I made the pattern. I'm going to delete that little sphere there. And then I'm going to redo it. So I'm going to come up and get my sphere tool again. I'm going to put it where it needs to go. Give it the proper size, peg thickness. And then I'm going to say OK. And now my guess is, yeah. So now when I come into the present again, now I get a little warning. And it's giving me a little warning down here because there are items that are missing. So it's missing an object that it thought it was supposed to be making a pattern of, because I deleted that sphere and then made a new one. So I just have to add that sphere back into my list of features, if it will let me. There we go. And now I've got a pegboard back there. So the real test here of this process, it's not gonna, it might make more spheres, it might make enough. So if I come here to my change user parameters, the real test is if I go, hey, I want my peg count to be 4. Kind of worked. Because because I made a center diameter rectangle. So it did this wrong because my rectangle is constrained at the center point, but my peg is constrained from the edge. So what I really should have done here is in my sketch, this dimension here and that dimension is good, but the other dimension, actually both of these dimensions should be from my center point.
Okay,
Peg
sorry, I gotta
spacing.
take off.
Yeah, sounds good.
Are you here every Monday then?
I'm here every Monday.
Alright. Yeah, I gotta figure this stuff out. I haven't been home yet, so I have to jet off to do some other stuff.
I hear you, yeah. The real dimensions that I should have been, and this is peg spacing divided by 2 for sure. What I really should have been doing is constraining that little circle from my center point there. And now if I say finish sketch, it kind of does it. It puts the balls in the right spot. I don't actually know, and it's not joining them together, but that's not an option. I don't actually know why that's not in the right spot. Maybe I'm wrong about this being peg spacing divided by 2 again. If this is just peg spacing. Oh, now it moved everything because now the balls are in the right place, but it's still not right. Maybe we need separate parameters. Anyway, we kind of get an idea of this parameter thing, right? You know, and the last but not least thing that we'll hear, let me go back to making it a count of 2 here. Yeah, that's going to be all messed up on the back. The last but not least thing here is we can create a sketch. And somehow I clicked create form. I'll create a sketch just on the bottom little edge there. And I'm going to choose to make a 2-point circle. This 2-point circle is going to be a diameter that is our cup? What do we call that? Change parameters. Bottle diameter. So it's our bottle diameter. And then I'm just going to...
Whoops. I'm just playing with my views.
With your what?
The views.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'm just going to offset this bottle diameter by 1/4 of an inch. And now I'm going to say enter, and then finish sketch. And then I can extrude out the outer ring. This is going to be the holder portion of my bottle, and I can extrude the inner bit, and that's the inner portion of my bottle. And there we got a pegboard bottle holder, little to hold our little chalk bottle. I'm gonna figure out why, before next time, I'm gonna figure out why this parameter thing didn't work on the back here. Like, well, how I need to constrain it properly. I almost need my peg to be right in the middle. Like if my peg is right in the middle there, and then I need to have an odd number of pegs at all times. Redo that pattern, daily thing, pattern, sphere. Nope, not peg spacing, peg thickness. And then if I come to where the pattern happens, add a rectangular pattern, and add my sphere back on there. Now, oh, hey, I know. This rectangular pattern, if I put my peg right in the middle, I need to change my direction. The direction on my pattern needs to be symmetric. So now, if I have an odd, make sure this is an odd number all the time. So now it'll make sure, now if I make it 5 wide, now it'll make it 5 wide. That's a really beefy piece of peg holder, you know. But there we go. Now it works properly. So the key was putting the peg right in the middle of our board, because our square is constrained based on the middle. It expands outward from the middle, right? We could have done it the first way if we would have, by dimensioning this peg from this side, if we were making a if we had started with a 2-point rectangle, right? Because our 2-point rectangle would also be, it also gets bigger from one corner, right? Like this was our origin. That's why it's really important to have something constrained to your origin. Because if that thing is floating out in space, it could do this, it could do that, it could go bigger in one way, less in the other. But if it's constrained in the origin, it moves in a predictable way. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Is that like constraints talk? Or are you?
Yes.
Is that the kind of thing you were going for?
Yes, exactly.
All right, cool.
Helps a lot.
Yeah. Parameters and constraints are super interesting, and and handy too. Like, so, we made a bottle holder for this bottle, but like, hey, now you've got how big is a spray can bottle? Maybe the bottom of a spray can is 3.25 inches. You just change that, and it kind of does it. For some reason, didn't do that right. But anyway, normally. Oh, somehow I missed. Yeah. So now we can just change the size of our bottle and put.
Hey, we could put crenellations on that thing.
Right, exactly, yeah. Now it didn't constrain my sketch down here for whatever reason, when in theory it should be constrained on this edge here. I guess I didn't add that constraint to it. So here I've got these circles are just kind of floating, right? Really, I need this circle. I need to make sure it has that tangent constraint. So this circle.
Does that happen automatically if you do a 2-point circle?
I thought it did.
Okay.
But apparently I'm wrong. Yeah.
Mine ended up in the right spot somehow.
Oh yeah? All right. Well, maybe I misclicked the first time. So, yeah. I thought it added a tangent constraint automatically, but I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. So now that'll be locked in place. Yeah. Cool. We'll see you next week.
All right. I'll see you then. Thanks.
Yeah.